Hey guys, welcome back to another innovation review. Today we've got a special one for you. This is the brand new OG2 from JackRabbit, and today we're going to talk about some of the specs, cover those in the electronics, the frame, and then some of the extras that come here. But a few important specs right off the top. We've got a 300 watt motor here in the rear. We got about 10 plus miles of range with a 36 volt battery here, and a price tag of $1249. Now the original OG was $999, so let's see if all of these upgrades are worth the extra cost.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice cover.
Now, as much as I would love you to stick around and watch the whole review, because it helps out with the ad revenue, I do want to touch base on who this is for, and maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. So the person that I see this being the most useful for is somebody who has to do any sort of carrying of their bike. So whether you live on the 8th floor of an apartment, or it's a big apartment, actually thinking about it, or you're somebody who's just going around to campus and you want something you can just kind of carry in with you, maybe you can throw it behind the seats. Somebody who's got a shorter commute and you got a decent spot you can put this at work, or somebody who wants to travel with this and actually fly with it, because like I mentioned, or maybe I haven't mentioned yet, it's a time thing. This is something you can fly with, which becomes very interesting for people who are, going on trips. They want to fly somewhere, pop this thing out, get it from their, checked luggage, and then just take off with it. So that becomes very interesting as a travel option. It is super light, 25 pounds. You see what I'm saying? This thing weighs basically nothing, and it supports up to 275 pounds, which is an increase from the original OG. Again, we are going to talk, I don't know where this is going in the video, so whether we already talked about it or we will talk about it, there is some extra reinforcements here with the frame, a little bit of a different geometry here. So really is quite a few upgrades, and really we only gained a pound or two. So it is pretty impressive. So if you're somebody that's looking for portability, you need to fold this up, lay it flat. You want to pop the handlebars off, throw those in the handlebar holder. There really is quite a few options to get this thing into a tighter space. So if you are that person, you're looking for something that's light, something that's portable, something that's reliable, it's going to get you point A to point B, the JackRabbit OG2 is actually a pretty awesome option. And again, price point wise, we're looking at $1249, $999 for the old OG. But as you'll see throughout the course of this review, or have seen throughout the course of this review, it's probably worth the price. So let's get into all the other specs. Now, first and foremost, when you're talking about an electric bike, talk about the motor. So right here in the rear, we have got this 300 watt rear hub motor. Now, this is enough to get this thing up to 20 miles per hour, which, on this platform is pretty impressive and feels pretty quick, especially when you compare it with some of the larger 26 by 4 inch tires. So this is probably right about the right amount of juice for this. Now on the XG, they do have a 500 watt motor, but price-wise, it is kind of in a different ballpark when it is compared to this. $1750-ish versus the $1249 here. Some pros and cons to having a more powerful motor. It's going to drain your battery a little bit faster. So I think the 300 watts here is a pretty efficient use. It seems like it's kind of in the Goldilocks zone as far as the motor that you need for this type of bike. Now, when it comes to the battery, like I mentioned, we do have 10 plus miles of range here. And one of the interesting things that's different between this and the OG, on the original OG, it had a locking mechanism down here. You had to use the key to unlock the battery, but this one's got a quick twist thumb lock, which is similar on the XG. You can pop it out. Now this is a 36 volt, 4.2 amp hours, 151.2 watt hours. And what's interesting about this battery is you can actually fly with it. So if you're on a plane, you're going somewhere, they've documented this pretty well, and I know a guy that did it, so it's not just marketing. You can check these on a plane and you can fly them with you, take them with you wherever you're going. Then you get to where you're going, you pop the battery back in, kaboom, and you are good to go. So interesting. Also, this is the, like I meant, same battery, same size, same form factor. So this is going to work with all of the batteries. So if you already have an OG, or if you got an OG, say a Range Buster, and you want to upgrade to this, that extra battery and the Range Buster is going to work in here as well. So it's kind of nice that they're keeping all that the same throughout the the different SKUs that they offer. Last thing to mention here is we only have a 3-hour recharge time. So if you are using this for campus, commuting, something like that, 3 short hours and you are back to a full charge on it, which is pretty convenient. Now, one of the main upgrades here between the OG and the OG2 is going to be this display. On the regular OG, there's a small thing here that shows you Basically, there's 3 or 4 positions as far as your battery level, and that's pretty much it. This one, you turn it on right here. I'll show you, we get a lot of different information here. Plus, it has a baked-in auto off, which the other ones do not. So if you had turned it on, rode it around, talking about the OG, then you go off and do something, you come back, you're like, oh crap, the bike was still on. And I had it sitting here for an hour in the on position. So the fact that it has its own power off here is pretty interesting. Now, a couple things you'll notice. At the top here, we've got what level we're in, which we can change at the bottom. So you press this, and this cycles through our modes. So mode 1 is what they're calling indoor mode. It goes about 7 miles per hour. It's a little bit slower. I could see this being useful for if you're at some sort of like big show or there's lots of people and you just want to cruise around, car show, fair, something that's got a lot of space to travel, but you can't really do it too fast. Having this indoor mode, I think, is pretty interesting. And then we've got our, on the bottom there, and then we've got our second mode, which is not going to give you your top speed. It's good for cruising around. Again, maybe it's someplace with a lot of twists and turns, but when you are in a flat area and you're really ready to open it up, you can put it into our third mode here, and that's going to give us our top speed of 20 miles per hour. So once you have the lights in, I believe you can use the top button here. Do you double tap it? No. Yeah, I think you'll press this top button, and that will also work your lights, because there's really only 2 buttons here. So there's the one at the bottom, which is what we're using to change our gears, and then the one at the top. So we'll go ahead and use the throttle, pick up the back wheel so it's kind of staying in the same spot. In mode 1, you have to kickstart it. You're like, oh, why isn't this going? You have to actually kickstart it, which I can kind of cheat. I guess I gotta cheat the other way. There we go. So under no, it's slowing down because there's no pressure on it right now. So this should go about 7 miles per hour. And again, this is a nice, easy breezy sort of way to ride around if you got a lot of people here. And then in 2, that'll also probably slow down. Should be right around 15 miles per hour there. And then our top speed, which is, I was gonna jump to 22 because there's no pressure under it, but it'll come back down to 20. So those are your 3 speeds there. Again, we got our nice brake there. You know what brakes do, they brake and stuff like that. So the display here is definitely a huge upgrade. And honestly, you'd probably spend 50, 60 bucks just to throw that onto an OG. And now we're kind of getting to the same price point as the OG2. So this is one of my favorite upgrades so far. It really does make it feel more like you're on an electric bike instead of just something that kind of scoots around under electric power. So it's going to show us some things, show us our speed, which we don't have with the OG. 3 different modes here, and then our battery readouts down here at the bottom. A little bit more accurate, I would say, than the lights on the original OG. So again, a lot of cool upgrades here. Plus we can plug in our front light and our rear light, and I'll show you guys where those plug in right now. Now this might be one of the shortest clips in the video because you plug in your rear tail light right here, your front tail light right here. You do not charge right there. There's actually a charge port which is right under here, so you don't have to take the battery out to charge it. You can charge it at the bottom of the frame, but the 2 ones that are right here, not for charging. It's for your front headlight, which will mount up here, and then your rear mounted rear light, which goes over there in that direction. So just a fair warning, if you do get one of these, don't plug in your charger into either one of these ports. It goes here right at the bottom. Now, one thing you notice right off the bat, if you look at it from the side, it is a different frame shape. So the frame has much more of a slant to it, almost a little bit more of a mid-step, if you will, as far as the angle and the height and how kind of everything works together. Makes this pretty cool as far as the geometry goes, because what that does is where you're seated, to your pedals, this is going to come up a little bit higher. And that was some of the people's complaints was, everything's a little bit too low, and you can get some high-rise bars and you can do some things with it. But the fact that the geometry just sort of allows these handlebars to be a little bit higher means it's going to be a little bit more of a comfortable ride. So that is interesting. We have this reinforced bar that comes down from the top, and that is gonna, reinforce things. If you wanted to, do some crazy stuff, like you've seen some of the marketing, jumping on things and kind of have a good time with it. A lot more frame support here as far as how this thing is put together. Down here at the bottom, we got the Mega foot pedals that come stock now, which is interesting. That was like a $65, $70 upgrade on the OG, and now they just come stock, and these are way better than the original OG pedals, and they're even better than the ones that comes on the XG. The XGs are a little bit bigger, but these ones are a little bit wider, a little bit flatter, and so these are actually One of my favorite upgrades on the bike so far, because you know, I've been doing bike reviews for a long time, and I usually mention like, oh, these pedals are a little bit small. I get something a little bit bigger, a little bit flatter, a little bit more surface area. So this has, you know, the most flatness and surface area that you can get. So that is pretty interesting as far as the frame goes. Something you notice up on the front, these little black dots here, these are actually bosses, so you can actually put things in there. So if you want to attach you know, a foldable lock or a small bag or a water bottle holder, you do have that functionality on both sides, so you can actually kind of pack this thing out a little bit, which you didn't have the option to do on the original OG. So that's pretty interesting. The other thing as far as the frame goes is we do have a new stem, or new to this stem, because it's actually the stem that comes on the XG. So the original OG stem, it had this way for you to like turn it around and kind of lock it into place, and that worked most of the time. Sometimes that could be a little bit clunky, but here we have the same stem that comes on the XG. And what's cool about that is you can actually unlock it and they just swivel out and they go into flat mode, which they used to call pancake mode. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I like pancake mode. Now the whole thing is super flat for storage. So that's pretty interesting. Go ahead and put that back down. So upgraded stem, and yeah, it just makes the riding experience so much better. So I mean, if you're sitting on it, this is a lot higher. If this was the original OG, we had the straight frame going out, you know, handlebars are kind of maybe a little bit closer to here or so. So definitely creates a better riding geometry, which is, you know, it's a nice upgrade. Also comes in a couple of different frame colors. We have got black, white, blue, and yellow. I got the yellow one because I like the way that one looks. But if you don't like yellow for some reason, there is more options for you out there. So all in all, it's a sturdier frame. We've got mounting options, better stem, better overall geometry, and definitely a big improvement over the original G, over the OG. Another difference here is we have two of the same size tires on the OG2. On the original OG, the front one was a little bit smaller, the rear one was a little bit bigger. Bigger in the rear for more comfort, smaller in the front for more agility. But here they have the same size tires, so that makes it pretty easy if you need to swap them out, something like that. You don't gotta go buy one tire of this, one tire of that. They have the exact same tires. So these are the CST Patrols, and they are really designed for the street. So, and this is where most people are riding it, right? So it's concrete, bike paths, sidewalks, asphalt, things like that. This is gonna be a really good tire for that because it gives you a lot of traction on those types of flat surfaces, right? If we had something that has some more knobs on the side, that would give it a little bit more off-road capabilities, but most people are not gonna be riding off-road, so these are a pretty big improvement in my opinion here. A few last things to note as far as some of the specs here. We've got a newly designed handlebar mount, so when you don't have it in flat or pancake mode, you can pop those handlebars off, shove them in there, which is pretty interesting. We've also got a newly updated kickstand, a little bit better than what came on the OG. Definitely don't have any issues with it. You know, pop the kickstand up and it holds itself just fine. We've got a rear mechanical brake on this side, nothing in the front, but again, it's a lighter bike at 25 pounds, which is, again, really one of the lightest things that you can scoot around on. So all in all, a lot of really cool upgrades here. I will probably be adding this one to the stable because there's really nothing else like it on the market, and I gotta have one.